Hello, hello. Okay, so on this week's episode, I really wanted to talk about transition period or transition phase and being able to also change your mind and really being able to bring awareness to our actions really and how we can ensure that we are living in our values. So there's a lot of topics, but I wanted to share those key points because this week is kind of going to wrap around various points that bring all of those together. So, I wanted to share this because currently, for myself, I am in 2 months now into a full time job as a BCBA working in a school board. And this is something that I am so passionate about. And honestly, I've truly been loving this job, this position, and really being able to connect with staff and collaborate and model strategies and support staff with behavioral strategies. Like, it all around has been an amazing experience so far. And I wanted to talk about this because as we navigate something new, when we make a change in our life, our priorities are going to shift, and some values might, not to say change, but our values are going to be reprioritized. And that's kind of this whole notion of it's okay to change your mind. And I'm finding that there's been certain points during this transition that I have actually noticed patterns for myself that have not been in alignment with my values. And it's interesting because a lot of the time when we have something new in our life that we have made a change, and whether that is something big and drastic, like you move to a different city, you take a completely different job, you're in a new relationship, you're doing different things in your life, it can really bring about this moment to reassess where we're at. And sometimes when there's something big in our life, we can be intentional and we can tap into our values, but sometimes when there's something so big, it's almost like our life can do a complete 180, right? And just really be like, okay, now that I have this new thing, I have a new schedule, I have new priorities, I have new expectations. Like, there's a lot of quote unquote like new things on deck. So it's like when that happens, we can start to get into the habit of focusing on like one or two things, and other areas might fall to the side. And you know I say all of this because I'm in the process of navigating what it means to have a full-time job and my coaching business. And in the beginning, I very much was in the headspace of I am going to give myself time and space to analyze what my new schedule looks like. So when I got my full-time job, I didn't want to overly stress about, oh gosh, I still have to be putting in the same amount of effort and time and energy into my coaching business when I'm starting something so new. So it was one of those things where I gave myself that space to be like, okay, I'm in this new job. I will release some of the expectations or things that I was usually doing in my business before, and now changing it so that I was like, you know what? My priorities have shifted right now. And I'm giving myself that time to process and be like, you know what? I'm actually going to give myself that time. And the hard part about that is the time frame and when to get back out there or when to reassess and reassign things back into your schedule. So with this transition for myself, I gave myself that window to be like, okay, I'm going to take a step back from my coaching business, just like let myself adjust to what my new schedule will be like. And in that moment, it also allowed me to realize like I wanted to get a new baseline. I wanted to allow myself to just go with the flow, see what fits, see what my days typically look like, and then analyze that like baseline data to then be like, okay, I see what my typical days look like. How can I now fit my coaching business and other things back into my life and kind of work around that. And my brain in this process was like, oh, like my brain loves to avoid and run away. Like my coping mechanism is throw all the excuses out there as to like why I should need to do something. And my brain loves that like comfort zone and that like honestly my inner voice is her name's Brenda, but like it's really like a lazy Susie. I don't know, like a lazy, like that's how she feels and how she comes out is like it's the effort piece. If I have to put too much effort, my brain's like, blah, like run away. So now that I have this like new schedule, this new job, like the flexibility of my day has completely changed. And so with this transition, I did in the beginning give myself leeway and time to say, you know what, like it's okay for me to like change my routine right now and like change my mind and let myself take some time away from my coaching business to just really assess and see like what kind of availability I do have. And that would then allow me to really focus in on key components of my coaching business, which right now is the Redefine Collective, because that is a community space, a container where with resources where I can really support my clients in that way. And so that was essentially my main goal. And what I started to realize in this transition time is one, sometimes when we tell ourselves we're in a transition, that in itself can be an excuse to not do the things. So that's like my one big takeaway here that I realized was funny enough, I actually, when I decided to start looking at a full-time job and I was really motivated to work in the school board, that was in July. Like that was in the summer. And I applied to a couple jobs. I had in an interview and stuff. And I like, but from July, I started telling myself I was in a transition phase. And even though I didn't have the job until December, really, I was telling myself I'm in a transition phase. And it's so interesting because when I look back at that, I realized that that was actually hindering my growth. It was hindering my ability to actually take the actions and steps to really move my coaching business and move my life forward. I basically was giving myself this statement and that was the reason why I quote unquote didn't need to do anything in that time because I was waiting for to figure out what my life would look like. But, when we look at that in the grand scheme of things, like waiting to find out something is not allowing us to fulfill and tap into like what we're engaging in the present moment and where we strive to be. And so it's interesting because I was kind of in a moment like that in the summertime where I was like, I'm in a transition phase because I made the decision to go back to a full-time job. Like that was a huge mental process for me to accept and release some shame and feelings around, oh, what does that mean about me? And I was able to really release those. So I think as a coping in that moment, I was telling myself, oh, I'm in a transition phase, but I didn't get that job until December. Like I didn't start the job until December. So now fast forward to December where I was like, oh, I am literally in the transition now. Like I am actually changing my whole schedule. And so now that I was in it, it was almost like a new layer of my brain being like, okay, well, now that you're, so busy with this full-time job, you have to scale back. You have to, like not do certain things. And in the beginning, it truly felt aligned for me to give myself that space and just really connect and be present with this new thing in my life. But there comes a point in time where how long do you do that? How long do you tell yourself you're in a transition phase? And this could apply to any other thing, right? Like when we have these excuses of like not starting a project, not starting a habit, not fulfilling, a healthy lifestyle that we've been really desiring or wanting to work out, like how long are we going to wait until the perfect condition? How long are you going to wait until that perfect circumstance arises where you tell yourself, when I get into that new job, like what mine was, like when I get into the new job, then I will focus on XYZ. And a lot of the time we create that rule. And that's the thing, our brain loves to create certainty around situations. So that's our brain trying to keep us safe in these moments to say, oh, well, when this thing happens, then that thing happens. It's like our brain can check that box of certainty to be like, this is a defining moment where when that thing happens, then we can engage in this other thing. And that helps our brain, like the logical kind of concrete side of our brain, to be like, that is a box we can check when that thing happens. And our brains are meaning making machines and want to build that certainty and structure. But that's also not how life works. Like if we're waiting around for a specific situation to occur, and in complete honesty, like I am being very transparent in this episode to say that like that did happen this past summer. And, it's like allowing ourselves to reflect on that and realize and catch it in the moment. So I'm actually telling you this in real time because I gave myself a window for the month of December and January as well to be like, you know what? I'm going to give myself that ease to move into this new job. And I did get 2 weeks off at Christmas at the new job. So when that happened, I was like, that is my defining time to really lean into my coaching business and focus on that when I had that time off. And I knew January was going to be like, I'm getting a more full caseload at my job and doing a lot more. And now things are really starting to pick up at my full-time job. So now being in February, I'm like, okay, like I have given myself these 2 months to really assess, and I'm noticing resistance. I'm noticing my brain wanting to be sneaky and create these excuses as to like why I'm potentially not ready yet to make a schedule for my coaching business, to take those next steps and take action on fulfilling certain parts of my coaching business. And I have new ideas and I have a completely new one-on-one coaching structure that I'm so excited to share eventually with you guys. And it's things like that where I'm noticing this resistance and my brain wanting to make excuses. And that brings in now this component of my values. And I want to say this on a whole, not just from like this transition time, but in general. Like when we feel excuses coming up, or, oh, I can't do that right now because, or, this shouldn't be what I'm focusing on right now because of XYZ. Like when we get into this like rule governed mentality, it feels more secure. Like it calms your nerves. Like that's the coping mechanism, right? Because it creates this false certainty that we're leaning into. And so I say this because I want you to challenge that. Like I am literally in this moment today choosing to challenge my thought patterns on the next steps of my coaching business. I gave myself that time frame of, hey, I'm going to release these expectations and these shoulds that I should be doing all these things in my coaching business. And I gave myself that space to be like, you know what? Let's be present in the moment. Let's focus on this new job and really give myself that space and know that it's okay to do that. But now, as I'm like wanting and desiring to get back into my coaching business, I feel the resistance and my brain being like, I'm in my comfort zone in this full-time job right now, like in full transparency, right? Like it creates that stability. And now my brain is like telling me all these excuses. And so I'm catching it and I'm challenging it to say, okay, is this aligned with my values of living like in my passions and making that impact and building that connection and support with my coaching audience and community, right? Like those are the big values that I have. And, really exploring and enjoying and connecting and supporting those in this space, like those are true values of mine. Like deep connection, I say this all the time, deep connection is like my number one value. And I love the conversations I have with you all. And I love getting to understand where you're at and how to support you and how to build that foundational behavior change and mindset work and leaning into that. And so when my brain was being sneaky in these moments, I realized I wanted to challenge it and say, is this really helpful towards my passions, towards, you know, my business and my overall like life path? Like I have two passions. One is being a BCBA, supporting individuals with varying needs in the school system and educators. And my other passion is coaching and really supporting those that desire changes in their life and want to work on building sustainable and healthy habits. Like those are things that light me up so much. And so I was like, you know what? I want to challenge this and really lean in and say, is this helpful? And, you know, these excuses are that inner voice, that little, little child in me that is scared and nervous about what this new path and this new life and this new schedule that I have is going to look like. And that's okay. And so, one, I just wanted this whole topic is about transitions and understanding like when we make new decisions in our life or when we change our mind, it's going to feel uncomfortable. It's going to feel weird. It's going to feel like you're a beginner again. And that's going to trigger your brain to want to run away from it or avoid it. And so I want to give you this moment to say, let's challenge that. Like, really allow yourself to notice what comes up in your body when you have these thoughts and feelings, and really allowing yourself to step into that alignment with your values and ask yourself that question of saying, does this action or inaction support my vision and my values and where I strive to be and who I desire to become? And if the answer is no, that is okay. And it doesn't mean anything negative or bad about you. It doesn't need to define you. It helps stretch you. It helps you to lean in and realize like, where do I want to grow? And yeah, it's gonna feel freaking uncomfortable. Like it's gonna feel weird. So I want to also like give you this permission slip too, and like to say releasing this expectation of what we thought it might feel like. Like, when I thought of this new job, I was like, oh, I'm so excited to do this and also do my coaching business. And now that I'm in it, I'm feeling that uncomfortable part of getting back into my coaching business and being like, what does this look like? And I'm having all of these thoughts around it. And it will feel uncomfortable. Growth is uncomfortable. Change is uncomfortable. And we have to allow ourselves to build the skills and take the action steps to allow ourselves to get comfortable with the uncomfortable. And so I'll just share this one quick story too. Like a lot of the time we can fall into this all or nothing with it too. And that's what happened to me in this process is like, as I was navigating these things, it was like, oh, I did this one thing. I checked off that thing. Now I can go do nothing. And it started to happen like with my podcast and my email. It was like, oh, I'll just do this. And then I won't really do anything else. And it was like, I did all the things, I checked that list. And then I was like, well, now I'm not going to do anything. And it kept going like up and down, up and down. And it's like, I wanted to create this consistency that was sustainable for me. And, another example of this is like with my workouts, for instance. I am also very, very proud of myself that I have been consistently going to the gym 2 to 3 times a week since beginning of December. So it's been 2 months now. Literally blows my mind. Like I have never in my life ever been that consistent. And that is why I love Orange Theory. And this is not a sponsored ad by any means, but I absolutely love it. They completely removed my decision fatigue. And if you want to hear more about that story, go listen to my episode all about decision fatigue. But I started to realize that my brain got accustomed to this new schedule of me going to work out Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And it was a 60-minute class. And what I realized was I my brain got so jumped right into this all or nothing where as soon as I did my workout, it was like I checked a box for that day and then I can go be lazy and do nothing afterwards. And I started to realize that I actually started to binge TV shows for many hours in the night after I would do that. And I thought that that was so ironic. But when we really think about it, it was like my brain got into this mentality where I was like, oh, I just did a 60-minute workout, which is honestly like such a big deal like for me to do. So my brain immediately was like, all right, you checked that box, you did that workout for 60 minutes. Now you can go be lazy and do whatever and veg out on the couch and like watch TV for hours. Like you earned it. And I started to realize this pattern, especially on my off days, like on Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, where I'd be like, oh, because I did my workout, like these days are the days that I can be super chill and do nothing. And then I started to realize that like on the Monday, Wednesday, Friday, it was like it was the all mentality where I was like, yep, I did all the things, I checked the box. And then on the other days, it was like, well, like because I did that, I can be lazy on these days. And I was seeing such a discrepancy. Like I got a really sore back from slouching on the couch for hours and things like that. And but then I would go do a 60-minute workout. Like I was realizing the in between time, I was not really supporting my body. And so I realized like it's not just to check a box. Like it's when I look at the bigger picture and that macro lens and that macro focus on my sorry, the macro vision. That's what I'm thinking about. Macro vision, like I want to be a healthy person. I want to live a healthy and fit lifestyle. I want to move my body, not just checking a box in a 60-minute window in a day. Like I want to be that person that like wakes up and does her workouts, you know? And I want to be that person that continues her movement, that gets up from her desk and moves throughout the day and takes morning walks and does mindful breaks and moves my body outside of that 60-minute class. And so my brain went into that like survival mode of being like, well, like it wanted that comfort and ease to be like, well, you did a good job. You did that 60 minutes. You checked that box. Now you can go do nothing. And my brain loves to do that. And so I was having this conversation with Ian yesterday about like my brain keeps flip-flopping between that of like, oh, I did that 60 minutes. Now I can go do nothing. And I'm realizing after, and I've been tracking my data and I follow, I like I have my steps that I have each day. And I'm realizing like my steps are like nothing on the days that I don't work out. And so I don't want that discrepancy. I want to build flexibility throughout my day. And so I'm just sharing this as like an extra story because when we think about transitions, we can be in that all mentality of being like, oh, I have to focus on this one thing and check this box. But outside of that, I can do nothing. I can be lazy or I can, you know, just not take action in other areas. Like our brain can get very much in that black and white thinking and really shift us in this way where we're not building flexibility to be like, you know what, on my days that I work out, I will still stand up and do 1 to 2 minutes of movement. And then on my Tuesday, Thursday, or whatever, those are the days where I'll take a 30-minute morning walk. And that is allowing me to build some more flexibility and movement throughout my day. And honestly, the only way that we're going to know these things is by analyzing and reflecting on that data, like objectively looking at that. So for me, it was like, oh, I literally see that I am working out Monday, Wednesday, Friday for 60 minutes. But outside of that, I was not getting any other steps in the day whatsoever. And it especially was noticeable on like Tuesday, Friday or Tuesday, Thursday when I was like, my steps were drastically lower. Right. So it's like when we allow ourselves to create the opportunities to look at that data and look at it as the facts. Like the facts is that I did a 60-minute workout Monday, Wednesday, Friday. That is fact. But when I start to create judgment of saying like, oh, I only did 60 minutes and I did not do any movement, um, and I'm annoyed that I didn't do movement throughout the day, right? That's creating judgment. So really allowing ourselves, and this is actually also in the self-judgment podcast episode. So I'm going to end it there. If you want more details, check that episode out. But bringing all this back together is when you have a transition, one, be cautious of how long you're telling yourself you're in that transition and if it's actually still helping you or if it's now become an excuse to not take certain action. And when you are, wanting to change your mind and really assess things, really just check in with your values. Look at that macro vision and your overall, and allow yourself to build flexibility within these opportunities. So, for instance, if I am feeling like I want to make this podcast episode and get back into content on Instagram, I'm not going to go the all or nothing route where I need to sit down and do all the things. I'm going to take the baby steps. If you feel that resistance, really allow yourself to connect and see like what types of things can I do to help build the momentum, to help get myself back on track, starting with those baby steps. And that is what I have for you today. I feel like I have some unfinished thoughts, but that is easily something that I can make for another episode. If there is anything here that like really resonated with you, by all means, reach out to me, send me a DM on Instagram, shoot me an email. And if anything, I just want to say, you've got this. Connect with that inner voice of yours, challenge it, connect with it, and really allow yourself to get comfortable with the uncomfortable moments. And if you're desiring a way to really build support and understanding around these things, I've got a big library of resources and baby steps along with those resources and a community to really support you through that. And that is the Redefine Collective. So if you are interested, hop in that. It is an amazing space. And we are currently doing a February challenge on one specific habit. So come join us. And if anything, I will see you guys next week. Talk to you later.